For a big company, Vortex has been one of the forerunners in the mechanical keyboard market in providing keyboards out of the realm of just full-sized or 10 keyless options that 99% of the other major brands put out. So today we're going to check out one of their somewhat recent releases, the Vortex ViBE. And here's the box, rather the tube, and out of all the keyboards I've ever received, this is the only tubular packaging I've ever got, so it's by far the most unique unboxing experience I've had. And I did open this a while back, so I'm not 100% on how this was packaged, and this is also an engineering sample, so yeah, things may be slightly different. Opening up the tube, we have the keyboard itself held in place by some foam pieces. We get a micro USB cable. No idea where I put mine, so this isn't it, but you will get one. We get the aluminium feet and rubber feet, so let's just go ahead and screw those on quickly. And finally, we have some extra keycaps, and you'll probably also get a user manual. Alright, so here's the keyboard itself, and it will be quite a foreign look for a lot of people. Vortex in recent times have been really experimenting with different styles and layouts for their keyboards. And that really is what they do, and in the past they really popularized the 60% layout with the poker keyboard, so it's great to see some variation from a big name in the mechanical keyboard market. Holding it in the hands, and it feels solid and somewhat hefty. It weighs in at just under 800 grams. There's no flex to it as it sports an aluminium enclosure and a steel mounting plate. The aluminium enclosure is anodized in silver, and the finish looks very clean and smooth. And Vortex have continued with their very simple and minimalistic cases with their new keyboards. It is straight up just a slim rectangular box, although the edges are chamfered just a tiny bit so the edges aren't sharp, and it's comfortable to hold in the hands. And again, the case is quite low profile, about as low profile as it gets with mechanical keyboards with full-sized MX key switches, with the case measuring at just over 11mm thick. Here I have their other recent additions to their lineup, and they're pretty much the exact same thing, but keeps the light silver appearance of the Race 3. And this low profile case presents a floating key design, so we can see the key switches are exposed from the sides, and with the fact that it doesn't extend past the keycaps, essentially having no bezel, it's pretty much the minimum in what a metal case can be. And you'll either like it in how it looks, or feel that it is a bit lacking, especially in comparison to other metal enclosures, which boast larger bezels and heftier cases. And on top we have these really nice SA profile keycaps. This is another thing that Vortex have been playing around with, being their keycap profiles. With their Core and Race 3, they introduced their DSA profile keycaps, and now they have these SA profile keycaps. And these are manufactured by themselves. These are R3 uniform keycaps, so they all have the same height and profile, as opposed to sculptured, which many people prefer, especially for SA keycaps. And these are quite tall as well, being quite the opposite to their DSA variant. Here's a set of Max Keys Miami Nights, and we can see the difference. So you do have to get used to them, and they may not be for everyone, but I found it easy enough to get used to. The only thing I had an issue with was I sometimes accidentally hit the pipe key under the backspace because of its height. However, this was only when I was typing with my wrists resting on the table. They also give the keyboard a unique and classic look that will catch people's eyes, with a classy white and grey colorway with black legends. And these are dye sublimated legends, making them very durable, and these are also PBT keycaps. And this is a pretty unique thing in the market, having dye-subbed PBT SA profile keycaps. And in turn, these are that standard normal slightly textured PBT plastic, rather than the more usual smooth feeling keycaps from Signature Plastics and Max Keys. And they're somewhat thin at about 1.2 to 1.3mm thick. As seen before, we do get a couple of extra keycaps to spice it up a bit, so we have red and blue versions for the escape, both enters and the numlock key. However, for the spacebar we have these purple pinkish spacebars, and these extra keycaps are an awesome inclusion for that bit of personalization, especially in this SA profile. Alright, so now back to the layout. Vortex describes this as a 78% keyboard, which is relative to a normal 100% full-size keyboard, but it's basically a 60% plus the numpad on the right. It's not a very common layout at all, and of course it's pretty much unseen in the mainstream consumer market. In terms of size, its height is that familiar compact 60% 5-row height, which does save you just a bit of space. As for the lateral length, it's just a tad longer than a 10 keyless keyboard, disregarding the bezels, so really just one column longer. Compared to a full-size keyboard, you do save quite a lot of space for your mouse or whatever you use on your desk, just like a 10 keyless keyboard would do. So it's like an in-between layout for 10 keyless and full size, but we of course don't get the function row on top like normal. This is actually pretty similar to the Cooler Master Master Keys Pro M that I recently reviewed, except that this does not have that top row. But it's really all about that numpad integration. With numpads, you either really need them or you can get by without them and just use the number row. So these types of keyboards give us the numpad in that 10 keyless type of form factor and size, as it essentially goes in place of where the nav cluster and arrow keys are. Typically with such a layout, there are two modes which switch between the visible numpad mode and then the arrow keys plus nav cluster mode, which includes insert, delete, home, and etc. And this is done simply by pressing the numlock key. However, the one thing that I wish they did was show the other mode with some secondary printing on the keycap or something. For example, showing that these 4 keys here are in fact arrow keys as well, and likewise with the above keys to signify that the nav cluster keys are there as well. And they actually have done this for the number row / function row, so it could have easily been done. And being a Vortex keyboard, the keyboard is of course programmable on board. And looking at the manual, it literally says to refer to the Poker 3 manual because it's the exact same onboard programming method as their other keyboards. However, they're also working on their interface, which I think will be web-based and will in time support most of their other keyboards. But for now, it's still on board, and I've gone through this before with their other keyboards, so I won't spend too much time on it. So we have the default layer plus 3 other layers, and all are accessible via the FN key and these 4 keys here. And the spacebar LED will change color for each layer. Once we're on our desired layer, we press FN and right control to enter the programming mode. Then press the key that we want to program. Then press the keys that you want the key to execute, where we have a limit of 32 keystrokes. And then press the PN key. If you want to do more keys, repeat those steps. Otherwise, to exit the programming mode, press FN and right control again. There's a few little extras and limitations, so make sure to read the manual. And lastly, we can switch between QWERTY, Colmac and Dvorak layouts with these keys here, with the right spacebar LED changing colors. And since these are uniform profile keycaps, changing the positions won't be so awkward like with normal keycaps. Personally, I don't crunch a heap of numbers and I tend to just use the number row on top, so I found the numpad area comfortable to use as the arrow keys and nav cluster. However, by having both the arrows and numbers on different layers, you cannot use them at the same time, and that may be a use case for some people out there. Underneath the keycaps, I just have some Cherry MX Brown key switches, and these are the RGB switches, although I believe the retail ones should be the standard black housings since the ViBE is not a backlit keyboard. Although this is an engineering sample that has RGB lighting and it does look pretty sweet. This keyboard is available in a couple of different key switches, and these browns are just a light tactile switch, meaning that there's a bump but no click. The stabilizers are surprisingly decent on here. Many pre-built boards, which include the Vortex boards, have terribly rattly stabs, but even with other keycaps, these are actually pretty good. Taking the keyboard apart is very easy with a couple of Phillips head screws, and keep in mind that this is an engineering sample. And here's the case itself, and this is CNC'd aluminium, and it's exactly the same as the previous cases from the Race 3 and the Core. It is the pure minimum of what an aluminium case can be. The walls are about 2.1mm thick with a little ledge for the keyboard to rest on, although one thing they did improve on that I did bring up with their other keyboards is that they made the standoffs even thicker, so they should be more durable now. Here's the rest of the keyboard, and it has a typical 1.5mm thick steel mounting plate which contributes much of the weight. Again, being an engineering sample, this isn't the perfect representation of the retail product, the big difference being that there are RGB SMD LEDs that we saw earlier. I'm actually quite interested to see if people that have this keyboard do have the appropriate components and spots to put these LEDs in. So overall, it's another unique addition to the growing Vortex lineup. The keyboard looks very sleek and is very minimal. The SA profile keycaps add an alternative look to most keyboards, and it's nice that they included extra keycaps. The case is very minimalistic, essentially being a bezel-less design, and is quite low profile. However, I feel that you will either like it or not, as it isn't as substantial and full like other metal enclosed mechanical keyboards. And in turn it is quite light, however the build is solid. We get the tried and tested Vortex style onboard programming, which is limited to some. However, sometime in the future they will release their web-based GUI. But its main draw point is its unique layout and the ability to house a numpad in a kind of 10 keyless sized keyboard. I personally don't get the most use out of it, but it can be very useful for different applications or when switching between modes of use. I'm just happy to see more variety, and that's what Vortex are quickly being known for.